The restaurant was glowing with Christmas lights, soft gold reflecting against crystal glasses and polished floors. When she realized she had been stood up again. Snow drifted past the tall windows like silent confetti, and couples filled the room with laughter she could not hear but could feel in the vibration of the floor beneath her heels. Across from her, the chair remained painfully empty. The candle between the two plates had burned halfway down, wax pooling like time she would never get back. For the third time that year, on the most hopeful night of all, she had dressed up, shown up, and been left alone. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that change lives, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that sometimes love arrives when we least expect it. Her name was Alara Bennett, and silence had been her lifelong companion. She had lost her hearing at age 6 after a severe infection that moved through her small body like a storm and left everything still. The world never returned to sound, but it filled instead with detail. The tremble of leaves in wind, the way people's shoulders tensed when they lied, the poetry hidden in hands. She learned sign language before she learned to write in cursive. She learned to read lips, though she hated how much effort it required. Mostly she learned resilience. But resilience did not make rejection hurt less. She checked her phone again, though she already knew there would be no new message. The dating app profile had seemed kind. He had written that he admired her art. She worked as a freelance illustrator, and that he wanted to learn sign language to communicate better. He had chosen Christmas Eve for their blind date, saying the season was about connection. She had believed him. She always wanted to believe. A waiter approached her table cautiously. She saw the gentle pity in his eyes before he even gestured. She offered a polite smile, signed thank you, and typed into her phone to explain she would just pay for her drink. She stood up slowly, smoothing down her emerald green dress. She told herself she would not cry here. Not under twinkling lights. Not tonight. As she turned toward the exit, she noticed something unexpected near the entrance. 2 little girls, identical in their red velvet dresses and white tights, standing just inside the doorway. Their cheeks were pink from the cold, and their dark curls bounced as they craned their necks to look around the restaurant. They could not have been older than 6. One of them spotted Alara, and their eyes widened in recognition. Recognition. Alara froze. The twins looked at each other, then back at her, and in perfect, careful motions they raised their small hands and began to sign. The gestures were not flawless, but they were clear. "Our daddy needs you." Alara's breath caught in her throat. The world seemed to tilt. She glanced behind her, thinking they must be signaling someone else. But the girls were looking directly at her, their expressions urgent and hopeful. They repeated the sign, "Our daddy needs you." Alara's mind raced. She had never seen these children before. She was certain of it. She would remember their faces. She always remembered faces. She stepped closer, kneeling slightly so they could see her clearly. She signed back slowly, asking who their father was and why they thought he needed her. The girls exchanged another glance. Then one of them reached into her tiny purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She pressed it into Alara's hand. The handwriting on the note was uneven but deliberate. "Her name is Alara. She is kind. If you find her, tell her we tried." Alara stared at the paper, confusion blooming into something deeper. The other twin tugged gently at her sleeve and pointed toward a corner table near the back of the restaurant. Alara followed the direction of her small finger. At that table sat a man with his head bowed, hands clasped tightly in front of him. He looked as though he had not shaved in days. His shoulders were heavy with something more than fatigue. There was an untouched plate of food in front of him and a small wrapped gift placed carefully beside it. The twins signed again, more urgently this time. "Daddy." Alara felt her pulse quicken. She hesitated only a moment before walking toward the table. As she approached, the man lifted his head. His eyes were red-rimmed, startled by her presence. He looked from her to the twins, then back to her, clearly confused but equally stunned. Alara signed a greeting instinctively, then realized he might not understand. She pulled out her phone and typed quickly, showing him the screen. "Your daughters told me you need me. Do we know each other?" He blinked, reading the message slowly. Then he looked at his daughters, who were watching with hopeful intensity. His lips parted as if to speak, but he stopped himself. noticing the small hearing aid tucked behind Alara's ear, a device she wore mostly to catch vibrations, not sound. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his own phone. His fingers trembled slightly as he typed. "I'm sorry. I don't think we've met. I'm Thomas." Alara studied his face. There was something familiar about the way he held himself, like someone who had once been steady but had recently been shaken. She typed back. "Then why did they say you need me?" Thomas swallowed hard. He looked down at his daughters, who were still standing, their tiny hands clasped together. Slowly, carefully, he typed again. "My wife passed away last year. She was deaf. We've been learning sign language since she got sick. Tonight was supposed to be our first Christmas Eve dinner without her. The girls wanted to find someone who signs so it wouldn't feel so empty." Alara felt something shift inside her chest, a quiet crack that let light in. She looked at the twins again. They watched her with fragile hope, as if she were a candle in the dark. Thomas continued typing. "They asked if we could find someone kind. I didn't know how. I told them it wasn't possible. But when they saw you signing to the waiter, they insisted." Alara glanced back toward the entrance, remembering the pitying look on the waiter's face. Of course, the girls had been watching. The weight of her own loneliness met the weight of theirs in that moment. 3 people missing someone. 1 woman who had just been left behind. It felt like fate was gently nudging her back into her seat. She hesitated only a heartbeat before typing, "May I sit?" Thomas's eyes softened. "Please." The twins beamed, practically vibrating with joy as Alara pulled out the chair that had been meant for someone else entirely. The candlelight flickered between them, no longer mocking but warming. Dinner unfolded not with spoken words but with typed messages and careful signs. Thomas knew more sign language than she expected. He was not fluent, but he tried with visible determination, his large hands forming letters and shapes with earnest concentration. The girls chimed in, correcting him playfully. They signed about their mother, about how she used to bake too many cookies and how she loved snow because it made the world quiet for everyone, not just her. Alara listened with her eyes and her heart. She told them about her art, about how she painted winter scenes because silence looked like snowfall. She admitted through the glow of her phone screen that she had been stood up that night. Thomas's jaw tightened, protective anger flashing across his features. The twins looked outraged on her behalf, their small hands moving rapidly in indignant gestures. For the first time in months, Alara laughed without forcing it. As the evening deepened, something gentle and unexpected began to grow. Not romance, not yet, but connection, shared understanding, the kind that does not demand perfection. When the check arrived, Thomas reached for it, but Alara gently stopped him and signed that she had already paid for her drink and that this was enough. He shook his head, smiling, and insisted in his clumsy but heartfelt signing that tonight had been a gift. Outside, snow continued to fall. The twins hugged Alara without hesitation, their tiny arms wrapping around her waist. She felt the fierce sincerity of children who had lost too much too soon. Before leaving, Thomas typed one more message. "Would you consider meeting us again? No pressure, just dinner as friends." Alara looked at the words for a long moment. All year she had searched for love in places that measured worth by convenience and perfection. Tonight, love had found her in grief and imperfection instead. She typed back, "I would like that." As they walked out into the snow together, something inside her no longer felt abandoned. The empty chair from earlier no longer haunted her. Instead, she felt the warmth of 2 small hands slipping into hers, one on each side, as they walked toward the parking lot like a fragile, newly formed family. Weeks passed, then months. Dinners turned into movie nights, then into afternoons at the park where Alara sketched while the twins built snowmen, and Thomas practiced signing beside her. There were awkward moments and shared tears when memories of their mother surfaced, but there was also laughter. Steady, healing laughter. Alara did not replace anyone. She did not try to. She simply showed up, again and again. And Thomas, who had believed his heart had closed with his wife's final breath, felt it open slowly, carefully, like a door that had been frozen shut but was now thawing. The following Christmas Eve, the same restaurant glowed once more. But this time, there was no empty chair. Alara stood between the twins, her hands wrapped in theirs. Thomas placed a small velvet box on the table, not with grand spectacle but with quiet certainty. Inside was a ring, Not extravagant, but meaningful. He signed slowly and deliberately, "Will you build a life with us?" Alara's vision blurred with tears she did not bother to hide. She had once walked away from this place feeling unwanted. Now she stood here chosen, not because she was convenient, not because she fit a mold, but because she had shown kindness on a night she could have chosen bitterness. She signed yes. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe that love sometimes arrives disguised as coincidence, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. And before we end, please comment the word believe below if you trust that second chances are real. Because sometimes, on the coldest nights of the year, when candles burn low and chairs sit empty, two small hands can reach out and change everything. And sometimes, the greatest gift waiting under the Christmas lights is not the one we planned for, but the one that quietly finds us when we choose to stay open.